Hey guys, it's Women of Destiny. So I've been off social media for a good few months now, just trying to focus on some home improvement projects, But I've also been following the Christian platforms regarding the American election. And there's been some questions and comments being made on some platforms that I genuinely felt that I needed to address some of it, not for the leaders' sake, but actually for their followers. So I'm going to group the leaders into three main categories. So I've got Marcus Rogers, I've got Ruslan and Lecrae. And this is not to endorse any man of God or anybody out there preaching, nor to condemn them either. But I think that the likes of Marcus Rogers have taken a stand that God spoke into them and told them that Donald Trump is the man, and therefore they are backing him up. And then you've got Ruslan, who sits in the middle and says that I don't actually think that God cares about politics, but I did vote anyway, but I'm not gonna fight anybody's corner. And then you've got Lecrae, who sort of initially looked like he was a pro-Biden, and then recently his last video that I saw, he sort of was leaning towards the fact that no political party is actually perfect and God doesn't really back either of them. You've got to weigh them as an individual and take your pick. So, and that's why I'm going for the three of them, because I actually believe that they represent the various kind of Christian opinions that are out there. And to make sure I'm going to go straight to the point and not waffle, I've got a few things, so I'll look away from the camera every now and again just to look at the notes to make sure that I'm going on the right course. And I can tell you this definitely wasn't the kind of message I was looking to as a comeback message, because I personally am not into politics, but I think that some of the questions that has been raised on some of these major platforms needs to be addressed. So I've titled this message Marcus Rogers, Ruslan, Lecrae, and the Christian being their followers, really. So what Marcus has been very clear about is that he's not saying he's pro-Trump. He's just saying that is God's candidate, and therefore he's gonna go for him, and encouraging people to support him. And some of the questions I've seen on his platform that I'm going to try and answer, one of them is people keep saying that Marcus keeps saying that God told him, and God told him this, and God told him that, and he needs to stop saying it. Some people have called him a false prophet because Trump didn't win the election. I've seen Ruslan, some of his videos, one of his video in particular, he was having a kind of a dig at Paula White for talking about angels coming from Africa. That was a good one. And I'll be touching on that too, So let's just ask the questions straight up and just say that are these men of God genuine? Are they wrong for prophesying? Is God really interested in politics? So for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to try and answer some of those questions that has been asked. So the first question is that, does God have a choice candidate? And the answer is a straight up yes, he does. Okay. And first example is going to be Cain and Abel. God rejected Cain's sacrifice and accepted Abel's sacrifice. Now, somebody's going to say that, come on here, that was the sacrifices. But actually, The heart and the condition and the status of the individual presenting the sacrifice makes a big difference. Because when you actually get to Genesis 4 chapter 7, God says to Cain, if you did good, would you not be accepted? So if you wasn't accepted, it was a rhetorical question. If you did good, would you not be accepted? So if you wasn't accepted, then by all means, he was rejected, isn't it? Okay, so Abel, we can confidently say Abel was God's choice, Cain wasn't. And then we have Malachi 1:3, Romans 9:13, where it says that Esau I have loved, and Jacob I have loved, and Esau I have hated. Now, in the context of when that was written, it was referring to a group of people and the descendants of Jacob and Esau. And clearly God did choose Jacob, because in the end, the 12 tribes of Israel came out of him. So it doesn't mean that God did not bless Esau. He blessed him. If you look at the time that Jacob came back to apologize to Esau, all the gifts he brought him, Esau said, no, I've got my own. So Esau was very well blessed. So when God doesn't choose you, it doesn't mean he's not going to bless you. He's the same God that allows the sunshine on the righteous and the guilty and the sinful, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah. So he is like that. He does pick. And then also another example is Saul. So the Israelites wanted a king. The Jews wanted a king. And God said, no, I'm not quite ready to give you a king. And they said, no, we want a king. So God gave them a king. Was it God's choice of a king? No, because God told them all the things that Saul was going to do that was going to be inappropriate. But God did choose David, the man after his own heart. So God is very much interested in leadership, and he does pick people and he rejects some people. Now, if Saul was his choice, then really Jonathan should have been the next heir to the throne. But then Jonathan lost it. He died, but in a way, God could have preserved him and given it to him. But we knew God wasn't going to give the throne to Jonathan, because actually, even Jonathan himself knew that the throne was going to go to David, and he was doing everything he can to protect David. So if men of God out there are saying that Trump is the chosen one, then will God bless America without Trump? Yes, God will still do that. Ultimately, God doesn't need a man. He's sovereign. But in principle, God needs a man, because he gave the earth to man, and therefore he needs a man to rule. And the people, by the nature of choosing the leader, you presented two people, Biden and Trump. So if people that hear from God are saying that God has chosen Trump, then so be it. God does need Trump to rule the world and rule America. Okay? So the other question I've seen people ask, can God use Biden to do the same thing that he would have used Trump for if Biden is going to be president? Yes, he can, but it doesn't make Biden God's preference. The other thing you've got to remember is that God always prefers to go with a willing heart, and he will often not force man. He can, but in his, as a principle, he normally wouldn't. He would like one that is willing. So if he's saying that, this is not me saying, I'm talking about what the man of God has said on the platforms, that this is God's choice. So if Trump is the third choice for God, then yes, God can use Biden, but will he? We don't know, because the power lies with him. that brings me nicely to another question that people are saying, that are the prophets and the men of God who said Trump will win, are they wrong because Trump hasn't won the election? Now, the answer is not, I won't say they're wrong, neither am I going to say they're right. And somebody is saying, you're sitting on the fence. No, I'm not sitting on the fence, because the issue has not come to a conclusion yet. But I'm going to share a couple of scenarios with you to make you see why they are not wrong yet. So in 2 Samuel chapter 12, when David and Bathsheba had their son, God told them that the circumstances under which they had that child wasn't his way, and that child was going to die. Despite all the prayer and fasting that David did, that child died. It did not matter what. However, in one of the Timothy's, Paul says that concerning the prophecies that has gone forth before about you, make warfare concerning them. So why is it that David made warfare and prayed and fasted and his son didn't live? That was God in his own sovereignty choosing to say that nothing is going to change my mind on this matter. You go back and you look at Isaiah 38 and 2 Kings 20. On the other hand, you have King Hezekiah, who was told to put his house in order because his life was coming to an end. He goes to the altar and pray, and within minutes, God changes his mind and sends the man of God to go back and say that he has added another 15 more years to his life. Let me ask you a question. If God had not given the word to this man of God and had given it to another man of God, would it have made that man of God a false prophet? No. God has changed his mind, and God is just chosen to honor the king's prayer. So, for all our people that are saying Trump is going to win and he didn't win, does it make them liars or false prophets? I've got one last example to share with you. There is an experience in 1 Kings 22. 1 Kings 22. There is an experience there about a king. No, that was it was about a king that God wanted him to take an action, and all the prophets prophesied. It said that there were 400 prophets that said that the king was going to win the battle, and these were all prophets that were surrounded by the king. However, Elisha alone, when he was consulted, actually, no, that's not the one that it was by Elisha. The next one I'm going to talk about was by Elisha. One prophet stood up and said that, no, the king is not going to win. And as a matter of fact, God is showing me a vision. And in this vision, God had allowed a spirit of lying to come and deceive all these prophets. So these prophets were prophesying something that they genuinely thought was true. But according to the last prophets the king consulted, they didn't even know they were lying. It was a deceiving spirit that had possessed them and had fulfilled God's will, because God wanted the king to think he was going to win the battle. So did God change his mind like he did on Hezekiah? Did God allow deceiving spirits to fill the mouths of prophets so that they would say what he wanted to say? When those things happen, usually the individual in question is God's got a beef with this individual and wants to teach them a lesson. So can we really say that perhaps this is an assumption? Trump was filled with a bit of pride and God wants him to feel like he's the man, but he isn't, and just sort of boosted his ego. Maybe, we don't know, because we haven't come to the end of that journey yet. And then there is another important one that I personally kind of lean towards this. And this is probably the only place where I'm sharing my opinion or my thoughts and my feelings in relation to all of this. Everything I'm putting out there, I'm relating it in general to the three kinds of ideologies that are out there. So this one in 2 Kings chapter 3, the king went to war and Elisha prophesied that he was going to win without a doubt. Elisha was an attested, his words did not fall to them. This is the double portion operating anointed man, isn't it? So we know that his words came to pass. And Elisha told this king that he was going to win the war. But when the battle got heated, this king of the Ammonites took his first son and sacrificed the child. And the battle turned against the Israelites. The Israelites retreated and ran home. But you know what had happened there? The man had offered a greater sacrifice that changed the game. And if the Israelites wanted to win the war, they shouldn't have retreated. They should have gone to the altar of God and offer even a bigger sacrifice. Now, that bigger sacrifice didn't need to be a man or a human being per se, but what God demanded: praises, worship, incense, lamb, confess their sins, the whole shebang. Put it all on the altar and get God to change his mind. But they didn't do that, and they ran away. And in this particular situation that we're talking about, could it be that Trump was really the choice man? However, the opposition has managed to do something. I don't want to go there, and probably some of you are guessing where I'm going, because actually there's been a lot of the talks about the I'm not gonna go there, but could it be that they've offered a sacrifice that has turned things around? And if that is the case, then what should the Christians that believe that Trump was the man need to be doing? They've got to up their prayer game. They've got to up their praise game. They've got to up their worship game. They've got to up their sacrifice game. I'm going to leave it there. Just think about it. And then question number 4. The other thing that people are saying is that, and this actually was Ruslan, he made that video saying that the men of God should apologize, So the question that is being asked is that, should the men of God apologize, as Ruslan is suggesting, or like Pastor Chris Vallotton, he is from Bethel, and he's already put out an apology there. And I'm going to answer this one and say that I don't think they are at that point yet. I would say that the men of God need to wait for the final outcome and then go to God for each individual's own guidance of what God is saying to them, whether they need to apologize or not. And the reason why I'm saying that is that the need for the apology depends on what sort of congregation you've got, the maturity of your following, the crowd that are following you. How familiar are they with the prophetic office? What is their understanding? That sort of thing, And the reason why I talk about maturity, there is somewhere, I think it was in Corinthians, that Paul was addressing the issue of defilement and eating of food sacrificed to the gods. And he said that, let the one that is matured not let their decision affect the one that is immature. So if I know that I can take this food, bless it and eat it, even though it was sacrificed to idols, and it will not cause me any harm, for the sake of my fellow believer who doesn't have that maturity to bind and break, who doesn't have that conviction and is not quite sure whether they should even be mixing with unbelievers, for their sake, I should not be eating the food. So I won't say they necessarily need to apologize, but it might be needed so that they don't lose their following. And it's not really about losing the following, but actually not causing heartache to their followers. You don't want to scatter the sheep because they got confused about something. And it would be a big man thing to do, to actually apologize if it's the right thing. That brings me to question 5. Does God talk to men of God all the time, like Marcus references regularly? Yes, he does. It's God talks all the time. It's up to every individual. It's up to us, the Christians, to be in tune. And some of these things come with maturity and a deeper relationship with God. So Abraham walked with God for a long time. And then after a while, God called him his friend. Now, who's your friend? The one you can just pick up the phone and say, hey, have you heard about this? The one that you can just send a text. I mean, think about it. How many text messages do you send your best mate in the day? How many chats do you do in a day? So if God's got that relationship with anybody, yes, they do a lot of chit-chatting. The other thing you will find also is that this level of chit-chatting also comes with the individual communing with God regularly and the sort of things that God tells them. And sometimes the thing with the prophetic is that you could hear something, it may have lasted even just for 30 seconds, 2 minutes. But in the spiritual realm, it was just a 2-minute conversation with God. But it's got layers of revelation in there. And as you unpack them, it probably contains 10 messages. So in that case, God has told you 10 things, but it was just in one conversation. So for those that are questioning whether God does talk to Marcus, the amount of times he keeps saying God talks to me, yes, God do talk to his people. In fact, with Adam, it says that God talked to Adam every evening in the cool of the day. God went to Adam and had a bit of a chit chat with him. And this type of chit chatting do happen in church settings as well, which is called utterance. So you can be in church and when the spirit of utterance falls, it feels like everybody's prophesying, everybody's hearing something from God, everybody's got something to say to you about God. And that is true. That is the spirit of utterance. Now, to the one that some of you may call juicy, and my final question is the one on Paula White. Will angels actually come from Africa to help America? I'm not sure if they will be coming from Asia or Europe or Africa. If I probably would have gone for heaven unless God has said otherwise, but if you consider the fact that angels will have to go back to heaven after completing an assignment, then maybe they took a detour and didn't need to go back to heaven, but straight from Africa, they could just hit America and deal with the job. Nah, that's just a bit of kidding right there. But on a more serious note, what I would say is that there is angelic reinforcement, and yes, that do happen, so forget the fact that they're coming from Africa or America, but there's something in there about the African thing, because actually it's not just men of God in America that has prophesied that Trump should have won. And just to mention a few, so in Southern Africa, there is a prophet from there. I think he's now based in the UK. His name is Ubet Angel. And this is not me endorsing him. I'm just saying he prophesied about Donald Trump winning. And then if you go to Western Africa, Ghana, you've got Isaac Owusu-Bempah, who said that he saw Donald Trump winning. And then about somewhere around, I think sometime around September, he said that he had another vision where the keys or the seat of the presidency had been taken away from Trump, and he was encouraging Christians to pray, otherwise it will not go the way they expect. And in fact, he even went on to say that he contacted one of his spiritual sons, who is a spiritual son to Paula White as well. and they were meant to communicate this message to Donald Trump. So maybe that's where the angels from Africa, that might be the connection, but never mind. But I guess my point is that there is angelic reinforcement, and angels, we saw it in Daniel when Gabriel said that Michael had to come and support him in order to win the battle. Now, those that are saying that Africa needs the angels more than America needs them. Let me just say something. It's true. In terms of human perspective, Africa's poor, Africa's this, Africa's that, and Africa needs the angels. But have you also heard of the phrase that when America sneezes, the world catches a cold? Now, that phrase originally was actually from a politician called Clemens. What was his surname? Clemens von Metternich. And this is we're going back in the Napoleon days. He was a politician that said that when Paris sneezes, Europe catches a cold. Now, as America took dominance of the financial market, the phrase was coined, and then it became that when America sneezes, the world catches a cold. So so let me put it this way. It's all about leadership and headship. So when the leadership or the headship suffers, the rest of the body is going to suffer. So America being a world leader as it is, you can agree or disagree, that's fine. If they sneeze, the world is going to catch a cold. So God will very much be concerned about American politics. And the Bible puts that in a few ways, and here are some of them. So there's one that says that, where shall the righteous be when the foundation is destroyed? There's another one that says that the oil flows from Aaron's beard to his garments, and then it flows from his head to his beard, and then to his skirts. There's another one that says that strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. That is all effectively saying the same thing. If the leadership is messed up, then the followers will be in trouble. So, in terms of America and the world, you have to understand that whatever America stands for, they're going to push it onto the rest of the world, especially in Africa. You get instances where things around aid, there are, strings attached to it. So there will be things like, you don't get this aid if you don't support gay. You don't get this aid if you don't support abortion rights. You don't get this aid if you don't overthrow this government. You don't get this aid if you don't do this. All sorts of things, including building military base in the country. If we do this for you, you're gonna have to give us. It's sort of a barter trade. So you have to understand that whatever the ruling government of America stands for, it's going to be pushed back out into the world. So from that point of view, God cares deeply about American politics because it's going to have an impact on the world. So I hope I have addressed some of the questions that, most of it that I think is causing confusion is what I've thrown out there. If the Lord puts anything on my heart, I'll be back. But for now, this is really for the followers of the three ideologists that are out there around. I'm pro-Trump, I'm pro-Biden, I sit in the middle, I don't have a choice, I'm not even a politician. Don't listen to what pro-Bidens are saying against pro-Trumps and vice versa. And those that sit in the middle that think that it shouldn't have any impact. At the end of the day, whatever precedent America gets, somebody's going to get hurt. But that is why I am sharing this message. Don't go off course. God is still in control, irrespective of who becomes president of America. Whether that was God's will, his perfect will, or his permissive will, it doesn't matter. It just means that God is still in control. And just like he shielded the Israelites from the plagues in Egypt, he's going to do the same for his children. Just like there was light in Goshen, but there was darkness in Egypt, it will be the same. God's going to look after you and secure you and keep you safe, irrespective of who gets the American presidency. God bless you. Have a lovely week.